Matthew chapter 10. There we are. The one I tried to take you to, but verse 34. Oh boy, I struggled with this verse for a while. Do not think I came to bring peace on the earth. I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. Where does Jesus carry his sword? In his hand or his mouth? In his mouth. If you see Jesus with the sword in his hand, then this next verse gives you the authority for violence through the lens of the world. But if you see Jesus with the sword in his mouth, then this word gives you the authority of tongue. You realize you have an authority as one of the sons of God that comes from what you say about your enemy, what you say about your loved one, what you say about your neighbor, what you say about yourself, what you say about your heaven. That's his sword. I've come to set a man against his father. The word set there is better translated alienate. I want you to think about this. I have come to alienate a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be those of his own household. What's Jesus talking about? Well, we do know that Jesus is speaking in a Jewish world. The book of Matthew is very focused on Israel in that last hour. Jesus is speaking in a world in which if you were to accept Jesus as the coming Messiah, your national heritage was going to turn on you. Your Jewish grandfather wasn't going to have anything to do with you. Your good Abraham following mother was not going to welcome you at the table. You had betrayed the faith of your fathers. And Jesus said, that's a sword, not in your hand but in your mouth, that sets at variance. I think the old King James says, sets at variance, father and son, mother and daughter. But that word alienate to me is powerful. It's Jesus' way of saying this. If a man accepts me, he becomes an alien in his own country. He becomes an alien in his own culture. Because I am so opposite of the way you trained yourself to respond that it is as if you are from another dimension. You know how John described the love of God? He said, what manner of love is this? Do you know what that word is in the Greek? What country is this love from? The early church looked at the love of God as from another dimension and the people of God as aliens in a world that did not understand them. You say, how are we going to spread the kingdom on the earth? We're going to love like Jesus. We're going to love like Jesus. Our religious pushback is going to be, there's got to be exceptions to the rule. We don't have to treat everybody that way, do we? And that's the same pushback Jesus got when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And a guy raised his hand and said, hey, who's my neighbor? You know why you would ever ask who my neighbor is? Because you're trying to figure out who you can hate. You're trying to figure out who you can marginalize. You're trying to figure out who you can leave out. You're trying to figure out who could get your fist, not your word. And Jesus gives you a story. And at the end of the story, what you realize is your neighbor is going to be the last guy you want it to be. And it's going to be the first guy you wish it wasn't. And that's the point. Go love your neighbor. Guys, we're in a world that's on fire. They're burning. They're mad. They're angry. It's time for the kingdom to show up. Time for the kingdom to show up. I'm not talking politics, leaders, elections, laws, justices or religion or constitutions or bills of rights or armies or riots or national guards. I'm talking for us to stop privatizing the kingdom of God as the avenue by which we get to go to an invisible place called heaven, and let's make public we follow Jesus, and here's how he loves his enemies, and here's how he treats marginalized people, and here's how he treats those on the outside. And I don't know a stranger. And when we get there, we begin the process. See, righteousness, identity, free. Following Jesus, costly. It's cost me my pride. It's cost me my arrogance. It's cost me my physical, violent response. It's cost me face and reputation. And when you follow, you know at times it costs you that as well. You don't get to say the first thing that crosses your mind. You listen for what your king would say. You don't get to react, you have to respond. Reacting's easy, because you can blame it on your temper when you're done, right? And hey, I'm in grace, he'll forgive me. So I can do whatever I want. And you know what? You don't lose your righteousness. You don't lose your identity, but you might have lost a potential ally. You might have lost a friend. Thank God you got your righteousness, but you've created a new subset of enemies that don't want anything to do with you because you privatized the faith that belonged to the world. Following Jesus is costly. It might cost us more. And I think if we pitched it that way, we'd probably have fewer people sign up. I mean, honestly, if we brought people in as if they were joining a new kingdom, we might have fewer people sign up. But you know where we would turn that tide? When we began to live the kingdom in a way that turned our enemies into our friends. And then the world would see, maybe the answer is in the life of God, as exemplified in the church. The only place I've found real love. The only place I've found real acceptance. The only place I've found real mercy. Don't we want to be that in the earth? Discipleship, I've went a long time. I promise I'm done. Can I say one more thing and then pray? Discipleship in a nation full of rights. Thank God we have rights. Following Jesus will cost you a few of them. When you sign up to follow Jesus, some of them you will have to lay down. And you might say, I don't lay down any of my rights. Then go back and watch Jesus, who constantly laid down what he could do, so he did what he should do. Welcome to the kingdom of God.